They chained her wrists to the damp wall, iron biting into flesh already raw from shackles. The cell stank of mildew and burned fat from past executions drifting in from the square. She could hear the muffled roar of carpenters hammering together her pyre. Tomorrow she would burn. The darkness pressed in on her. The only light came from a guttering torch beyond the bars, its smoke mixing with the damp. Each breath filled her lungs with rot. Every sound echoed, the drip of water, the scurry of rats, and, faintest of all, the whispers of a crowd that already judged her guilty. Her crime was not witchcraft, but weakness. A widow, no husband to shield her. A sharp tongue that defied silence. When the harvest failed, when cows sickened, when storms raged, it was easier to blame her than the heavens. Fear demanded a body. The court supplied her name. At the trial, the hall had been swollen with bodies. Men stood shoulder to shoulder, sweat dripping under their collars. The priest's voice rose like thunder, warning of Satan's hand in their village. Every mother clutched her child tighter. Every farmer crossed himself. By the end, no defense could save her. She cried out that she was innocent, that she had never danced under the moon, never cursed a field, never kissed the devil's hand. But her words were swallowed by jeers. The magistrate's face remained still, but his eyes gleamed with a hunger of power fed by spectacle. The torturer broke her spirit with whips, branding irons and ropes. Her back split open under lashings, her screams ricocheted through stone halls. They forced a quill into her hand. She could not write, but they dragged her fingers across parchment. The jagged mark sealed her doom. Now, in the silence of the cell, she whispered prayers. Not for freedom, only for the fire to be swift. She begged for flames that would choke her before agony lingered. Yet she knew the pyre was built to prolong, not shorten. Death would come slowly, feeding the crowd's hunger. Beyond her cell, guards drank. Their dice clattered on wood, their laughter thick with ale. They joked of her screams, of the smell of flesh that would drift through the town. To them, she was already a corpse, a form to be consumed by fire while they toasted victory. At midnight, bells tolled. The air in the dungeon grew heavy, as if stone itself waited. She thought of her children, faces she would never see again. She thought of neighbors who had once broken bread with her, now whispering, "Witch." Their betrayal seared deeper than the lash. Sleep came in fragments. Dreams of flames curling up her body jolted her awake. She gasped, only to breathe in smoke wafting from the square where another accused woman had burned weeks before. Each ember that reached her nose told her tomorrow she would join the chorus of screams. At dawn, the executioner came, a man of broad shoulders and dead eyes, his hands thick with scars. He carried ropes stained with soot. Without a word, he bound her wrists and pulled her forward. His silence spoke louder than cruelty. He had walked too many to the stake. The square was alive with bodies, farmers, merchants, nobles. They all gathered, pressed shoulder to shoulder. Some whispered prayers, others jeered. Children sat upon their father's shoulders, eyes wide, eager to see her screams. Justice had become theater, and every villager had bought their seat. The stake loomed, towering above the crowd. Tar glistened on the wood, kindling stacked high. She was dragged up, lashed tightly, the ropes biting deep. Her head hung low, hair shrouding her face. The priest pressed the cross to her lips. She turned away. Murmurs spread. Defiance burned still. A torch flared. The executioner lowered it. Tar hissed, smoke curled upward. Heat surged as flames licked her feet. Blisters bubbled across her skin, bursting with each searing snap. She screamed, a sound so raw it cut through prayer. Mothers flinched, but no one looked away. The fire climbed. It swallowed her legs, curled her hair into black threads. She strained against the ropes, skin splitting, flesh crackling. Her voice broke into ragged sobs. The crowd watched in silence. They were no longer people, they were witnesses to ritual, bound by her agony. Eyewitnesses stood frozen. A boy sobbed into his mother's skirts. A merchant muttered, "Too much." A guard shifted uneasily, his laughter gone. Yet none stepped forward. The priest lifted his hands and declared her soul redeemed, his words drowned beneath the roar of fire. Her screams faltered, her chest heaved ragged, smoke-scorched breaths, her head slumped forward, her body sagging as flames devoured it. Then silence. The fire roared on, devouring the last of her face, her hands, her body. The crowd exhaled as one, bound by horror disguised as faith. When the flames subsided, only ash remained. Mothers pulled children close, but the smell of burning clung to their clothes, their hair, their skin. The people would carry it home, unable to wash away the memory of flesh consumed before their eyes. The priest declared victory, shouting that Satan's servant had been destroyed. The magistrates nodded, pleased. Her land was seized, absorbed into their holdings. Her death became a political tool, a warning, disobey, and fire awaits. Fear held the village tighter than any law. But whispers began. Some swore her screams haunted their dreams. Others whispered she had been no witch at all, but a scapegoat. Letters spread to nearby towns, recounting the cruelty. Doubt festered in silence, spreading like sparks in dry straw. Fear had bred obedience, but also unease. Months later, more pyres burned. Yet her death lingered, not as proof of justice, but as memory of horror. The villagers remembered the sound, the smell, the silence after her final scream. They carried it with them into sleep, into prayer, into every glance at the empty land she once owned. Her name faded, as rulers wanted, but cruelty leaves scars deeper than flame. Each pyre lit after hers carried her ghost. Each accusation reminded them of her face. History preserved not her innocence, but the fire that consumed her and the silence of those who watched. So I ask, had you stood in that crowd, would you have cheered? Would you have spoken? Or would silence have bound you as tightly as the ropes bound her body? History is not only written by rulers, it is written by the voices that remain silent. If this tale chills you, let it linger. Share your thoughts. What do you feel when cruelty is dressed as justice? Stay with us, for the next story drags us deeper into shadows, where punishment became theater and the line between faith and fear dissolved in smoke.